The fantasy football playoffs are upon us. Hopefully, with effective trades, waiver wire pickups, and start-em-sit-em decisions, you've made it to your league's playoffs and are now poised to make a deep run at the championship. The time is here to make your final roster adjustments of the fantasy season as we prepare to do battle until the bitter end. Let's take a deep dive into which players you should consider picking up and which players you should consider leaving on the bench as we head into what we've all been waiting for and worked so hard to accomplish. Go with what got you here and don't overthink it. However, don't just play a guy because you spent an early draft pick on him 4 months ago. Trust your research and trust your instincts. Let's have some fun. For more late-season trade pickup start-sit ideas, check out recent editions of this article: Week 13, Week 12, Week 11, Week 10, Week 9, Week 8. More. Dominate your league with Fantasy Alarm's season-long tools. Fantasy football trade candidates. Stock up. Josh Gordon, W.R. Cle. In his first game in almost 3 years, Gordon was all over the place for Cleveland, showing little rust. Quarterback DeShone Kizer knew who the superior athlete was on the field, giving him 11 targets on the day. Even though Gordon only reeled in 4 of those, that can be attributed to Kizer's inaccuracy and the fact that this was their first ever game together. Expect their relationship on the field to grow and Gordon to excel immediately, as former top target, Corey Coleman, was held to a whopping 0 catches on only 4 targets. It's obvious which way both of these receivers are trending, and while the matchups aren't great after this week's tilt with the Packers, the talent and volume will not be an issue. Blake Bortles, QB. Jack Bortles has 2 consecutive 20-plus point games in standard ESPN leagues, and with teams zeroing in on running back Leonard Fournette after his rumbling start to the season, Bortles has to throw for the Jaguars to win. The Jags are ready to win now and need to get their QB as much confidence as possible heading into the playoffs, leading to a possible increase in usage from the aerial side of things. Jacksonville faces 3 teams who are very vulnerable to passing attacks in the fantasy playoffs in Seattle, Houston and San Francisco, the latter 2 of which are in the bottom 3 in the NFL in fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. Marquise Goodwin, WRSF. See what happens when you get a good quarterback in the building. Goodwin caught all 8 of his targets for 99 yards against a solid Bears defense and looked to be on the same page with Jimmy Garoppolo from start to finish. This is an extremely talented and exciting duo, and they should get more comfortable with each other with each passing week. 2 very tasty matchups on the horizon in Houston and Tennessee should allow these 2 to put up some sneaky good numbers, and although a Week 16 Jags matchup puts a damper on things if you make it to your league's championship, at least they'll get you there. Week 14 rankings: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, DST, kicker. Fantasy football trade candidates. Stock down. Stephon Diggs, W.R. Min. Case Keenum's emergence in Minnesota makes this a surprising choice, but the targets and points are simply not going in Diggs' direction. This season, with Keenum and Diggs both on the field, Diggs is averaging just over 4 receptions and 63.7 yards, and 3 total touchdowns, most of which came in their first game together in Week 3 when Diggs had a stat line of 81,732. There's absolutely no doubt that Keenum tends to go with his gut. Thielen, see what I did there, when looking to get the ball downfield, as Thielen is averaging 6 receptions and 85.5 yards per game and 3 total touchdowns with Keenum under center. With Diggs' elite talent, his numbers should be much higher to reach draft value, as he was likely drafted in the first 5 rounds of your draft. Drew Brees, QB. No. New Orleans has found something special in Alvin Kamara, and teamed up with Mark Ingram, they pack quite the punch. Brees isn't struggling by any means, with 17 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions on the season, but with the 2-headed monster in the backfield, Sean Payton and the Saints have changed their game plan drastically this year and pound the running game. Brees is no longer the 5,000-yard passer and gunslinger he was in years past in this offense, and he doesn't have to be. This is a great thing for the Saints and, quite honestly, for Brees himself, as he doesn't have to burn out late in his career. 2 matchups against the Falcons and a home game against the Jets certainly allow for Brees to light them up through the air to finish the season. However, the intent to do that likely will not be there. Jordan Howard, RBG. Remember when Charlie got the golden ticket to go to the chocolate factory and had the time of his life? Howard had the golden ticket this week against San Francisco, and judging by his performance, he either lost the ticket or is allergic to chocolate. San Francisco is the single worst team in the NFL in fantasy points given up to running backs, and Howard is the lead running back for Chicago. What could go wrong? Well, just about everything went wrong here, as Howard lit up the stat sheet with his 38 yards on 13 carries and 1 reception, for -5 yards. Yep, it was that kind of game for Chicago, as they ran an astoundingly low 36 total plays to San Francisco's 73. The future matchups look pretty good with Cincinnati, Detroit and Cleveland on their plate, but with Chicago's ineptitude on offense and inability to do anything against the 49ers, it's very hard to believe that we can expect much out of Howard to finish 2017. Fantasy football trade candidates stock neutral Steven Anderson, how? In such a wild year for tight ends, we really have to dig deep, like with Ricky Seals-Jones, to find sleepers that could make an impact down the stretch. With an injury to starter C.J. Fedorowicz, Anderson stepped in and caught 5 passes for 79 and a touchdown on a whopping 12 targets, second only to DeAndre Hopkins. This is definitely a flyer here, but at this target share, he could be a huge pickup if you're looking for help at the tight end position. There is reason to believe that he could remain the lead tight end the rest of the season, as Fedorowicz suffered his 3rd concussion of the season already, possibly forcing him to sit out the remainder of the season. Kenyon Drake, RB, Mia. When Damian Williams suffered a serious shoulder injury in Week 12, it opened the door for Drake to have a clear-cut role as the lead back in Week 13. Matching up against a Broncos defense that has struggled against running backs in the second half of the season, Drake cruised to 120 yards and a touchdown on 23 carries. With Williams expected to miss a couple weeks at the very least, Drake should continue to see a similar workload moving forward. Miami remains at home this week to face the Patriots before heading to Buffalo and Kansas City in weeks 15 and 16, so there are plenty of points to be had from the Alabama product.